let's talk about stuff that will change.
Okay.
It was in my head because we just get to this point in the season and we think we know something about the NFL. And I just look at the NFL as a seasonal sport where November is going to be totally different than October. December is going to be totally different. You want to be peaking at the right time. But some of the things that we believe to be true now will no longer be true as we get further into the season. What is something that will change, Colleen Wolfe?
The Bears hype. The Bears hype will dissipate. It will. It's at a boil right now. It's going to come down to a simmer. The Caleb Williams hysteria, that's probably never going to subside because of...
I was going to make this segment, I'm not buying it, like stuff that has hype, but I didn't want everyone to have to go negative all the time, but then you just came hard negative. I just like that it's spicy.
No. Okay, it's not negative I have a reason for this. Because
what, that you don't like hype them? Producer?
No, because of their remaining schedule, they still have to play all of their division games. They have to play the Vikings twice, who are first in defensive DVOA. They have to play the Lions twice, who are fourth in defensive DVOA. The Niners, who are fifth in defensive DVOA. Obviously, the Packers, they have the Commanders, the Seahawks, and then like the Patriots and Cardinals. But this schedule is an absolute gauntlet. The NFC North in general, it's the first division since the merger to have every team with at least 4 wins through week 6. It's a killer. So, yes, I think that Caleb Williams deserves all of the accolades and all of the love that he's getting right now because he played a great game and he threw some absolutely beautiful balls and placed them where only he could for his receivers to get them and score, especially that one to Keenan Allen, the second touchdown. Maybe that was his best pass of the entire season. But the hype is going to diminish a bit because the schedule is really, really difficult.
Okay, so it's just more about the schedule. I think that's true of this. So we can kind of combine ours because, mine was the NFC North in general being this good. And part of the reason that they have the top 4 teams in terms of point differential for the first time ever through 6 weeks is they haven't played each other at all. So that's just like a quirk in the schedule. But you're right. Other than the Vikings, who have somehow gone undefeated despite playing like a brutally different...
Sam Darnold didn't really look that great.
No.
We might
it is funny that like
Island, we're going to have another couple.
Right. It is funny that they have the number 1 defense in all stats. They have the number 1 like running game in a lot of different stats. Like their passing game's like solid and Sam Darnold still gets all the credit. But
I can't wait until they go to the Super Bowl and we're like, I still am not buying the Vikings.
I have loved how steady and consistent Brian Flores' defense has looked. I think that defense, unlike probably some, like for example, the Bears defense gives me a little bit of pause when you talk about being built to play when it gets way colder, when teams are running the ball more, when they're running heavier against you. But I think that Brian Flores and that defense has showed, even though we talk so much about the crazy pressures and those types of things, I think that he is malleable enough and flexible enough. And Jeff Hafley's defense is starting to look pretty good as well.
Yeah, so that was actually part of my reasoning that the NFC North can't stay this good this long is that they have 17 turnovers this year. They forced 17 turnovers. And that was an idea that they talked about in the offseason. So maybe you can really coach up turnovers, but that feels unsustainable. They actually have some pretty big holes, I would say, in their defense. Their pass rush really hasn't worked. They're starting to play more rookies on their defense, and I think that could help them long term. But secondary linebacker, I think they have holes on every level, but it's been covered up by just this crazy turnover rate. And so that's part of the NFC North equation. The schedule was a big part of it, though. So the Bears have had the 31st, the second easiest schedule in the league so far, and they go to the hardest schedule in the league moving forward.
But that's kind of great, though, for Caleb to kind of ease him in because it is unfair to him. It's not like he can control all of the attention that he's getting, and he needs time to grow and develop.
No, and he's going to be the next 3 weeks. They have the Commanders, which for an offense is not a hard matchup, and then the Patriots and the Cardinals. So 3 of the worst defenses in the league in a row. So they could really keep getting fat, and then it gets brutal. But they're not the only team where it's similar to that. The Lions have had the 20th schedule in the league, easy. They're going to have the second hardest moving forward. The Packers have been right in the middle of the pack so far, the third hardest moving forward. Now, part of that is just everyone's got to play the Vikings, and the Vikings are a load. I think the Lions can withstand and hold up. I think the Packers need to keep getting better, and they are a team that you would believe will, but I do think their defense might be a little unsustainable, and it's hard. How can we really have 4 good teams in the same division? Maybe we could maybe have 4 teams over 500. It's pretty exciting.
The Lions are the best team in the NFC.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, when the Packers, as long as they have a healthy Jordan Love, they're going to be relevant. And obviously, Sam Darnold and those Vikings are 5-0.
Yes.
It's just such a good division.
So it's more, a big part of it is just they're going to have to start facing each other, and they lucked out in the scheduling, just what divisions they had to play. We thought the AFC South was going to be improved this year, and it's not. And so that's really helped them as an out-of-division schedule. What do you got next? Jordan, you give me something that'll change.
One thing that I think will change is Jerry Jones's general demeanor and vibe with a certain Dallas radio station. His regular 105.3 The Fan. So he does this regularly all throughout the season and off season. That interview got extremely heated, and we do have the audio of that.
Your job isn't to let me go over all the reasons that I did something, and I'm sorry that I did it. That's not your job.
Well, my job is to ask
y'all
why.
get a job, or I'll get somebody else to ask these questions, man.
Jerry Jones will fire you, even if he doesn't work for the company. Does he own the company?
Well, your partners, if they're your radio partner, it's kind of like, does NBC work for the NFL? Not exactly,
Right.
but it's a symbiotic relationship where they have influence certainly on who's hired and who isn't.
Yeah, and let's not forget how open and amenable he is generally to doing any interview, anything.
He loves the spotlight.
Yeah, and even at league meetings today, a couple of the national reporters who were there were talking about how he walked in way later than he normally does and then politely declined to speak with media because he was going to be late for the meeting, even though he's always early and he always holds court for, even at times multiple hours. It's tough. He's going through it right now. It's not just that it was the loss to the Lions that we were just talking about on his 82nd birthday. It's not that they got blown out. It's that they lost to a team that has no issues shape-shifting into a variety of different forms, who are essentially like comfortable just playing with their food at the end of the game, as he sat there and watched. And it's also that the Cowboys feel like they're helmed by coaches and have structured their team who feel like the foundation and future, or the Lions are helmed by coaches who feel like the foundation and future of a franchise, while the Cowboys sort of feel like lame ducks from a bygone era, and they're struggling. The best player's injured. The game's iced by your quarterback, who you're asking to do everything at the line of scrimmage, and you're still making him throw blind into the sun because you can't put a curtain over the ceiling. It's a lot of things that are making people very.
You want a curtain
tight.
over the side of the stadium.
No, that's an option. There is one that exists that
There was
can be
curtains there.
that.
Very good.
But I'm just saying, there's a reason for him feeling like this right now, for bristling when people, I think, are fairly and rightfully questioning him for all of the either decisions they did make or the decisions they didn't make, including the lame duck situation that it feels like in so many areas of this franchise, inclusive to the coaching staff.
I would be angry too if my team couldn't run the ball, couldn't stop the run. I had no home field advantage when before that was the main thing. There's no real identity. There's so many injuries. There's a lot.
And every
of
week
problems.
they're always like, we just got to practice better. Our practices haven't been great. And like McCarthy will say that too. And like, those are your practices, bro. Their offensive line, though, is the beginning of. It's why I don't think they have a very, like, even if everything went right the rest of the year, Zimmer. I think their defense. Speaking of things that could change, like, if you told me that their defense is average or better in December, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, they're missing so many.
They're missing so many people,
Yeah.
and it's a new system, and it's a coaching a coach that hasn't been in the league for a minute. His system, like, I could see that there's room for improvement. I think the offensive line might be cooked. Zach Martin is a problem for them right now. He's a future Hall of Famer coming off the worst game I think of his career. Some people are wondering if he's fully healthy, but whatever it is, they've probably got 4 weak spots right now on an offensive line that used to be what they were all about, and now they've got Tyler Smith. He's a really good player, and 4 problem areas, and that's something I don't know if there's a solution.
Don't you think the optics of this, though, are what I was texting you a little bit about this over the weekend with in reference to another coach is like in another building. It's like, don't you think the optics here? This is, you lose to this team, not just that you lose, but you lose to this team that they're doing whatever they want to do against you from a variety of different concepts and ideas, and then there's all these cuts to the sideline of this younger, energetic, and galvanizing head coach who clearly has his entire team just like
It's a good call.
living and
Everything
dying
you're
with
not.
him, and then cuts to the hotshot offensive coordinator on the side of the screen who's basically
Ben
like,
Johnson
I'm only going
in
to
the
read
lab.
one of my plays off this play card and try to just get a touchdown to an offensive lineman and literally play with his food. And there's camera shots to this guy who is the future of this league on the sideline, and you're sitting there in your box looking freaking miserable. Like, I think the optics have to be bothering him.
What
too.
a terrible birthday.
Yeah, I agree with that. That it was the most embarrassing loss you could have. I mean, I don't think it helps if we're going that far that a longtime Dallas Cowboys captain is coaching the Lions.
right.
Not only that, but he was the protege of the guy that you supposedly have been pining over forever, Sean Payton, and you
so
missed
many
it.
layers.
Yes,
There's
There's
much.
a lot of layers
There's
here.
a lot.
Anyway, that's the reason for the tone.
Okay, I love that. All right, let's go around one more time quickly. Stuff that will
Okay.
change
The Bengals will rise from the dead.
like that.
They are sub 500 right now, but they are just too good. Joe Burrow's too good. They're 8th in offensive DVOA. I mean, the offense is 10th in scoring, 12th in yards per game. And that's doing it without T. Higgins for every single game. I mean, maybe the defense, maybe this was a turning point. I know that they were playing the Giants, but maybe this is just good for an ego boost at this point. Even marginally better for the Bengals defense would be an improvement. And their schedule, they have some softballs coming up. I mean, they have the Raiders, they have the Browns twice, the Titans, who are a good defense, though, the Cowboys, the Eagles, which we just don't know what those
It's
teams
funny that the
even
Cowboys
are.
and the Eagles now look like food.
It's so weird. So, if the Steelers start messing around with Russell Wilson and losing games, then the Bengals could probably chase them at the end of the season.
Love that. Makes total sense to me. The Wesseling brothers and I were texting over the weekend. Everyone is getting more optimistic about the Bengals
That's good.
already. I think it's going
I
to
love that.
happen. I'm going to find a glimmer of hope here in what Justin Herbert did over the weekend to the Broncos and say Justin Herbert is not going to be playing conservative ball for the rest of the year. That the real Justin Herbert is going to come out. He's going to be allowed to come out from Jim
Blossom.
Harbaugh.
What a celebration it would be.
In this, yes, he's just like a beautiful little
He's swimming
butterfly.
to
He's
quarterback
he's
island.
ready to come out of his cocoon. Ooh, I like that. He could be a candidate in a couple weeks. So they've had him under lock and key. Part of it is the mindset of how they want to play offense, but I think the bigger part of it is he was just so injured. That bye week was really important for him, and I think it really showed up on film this last week. Not only that he was a different player, but that they treated him like a different player. So more dropbacks, more yards, more plays outside the pocket, more planting his feet and going down the field, more mid-range throws, more deep throws. He just looked like Justin Herbert again. So I think people maybe attributed so much of the beginning of the year to, oh, the Chargers are just going to play this really boring style. That was a part of it, but I think it was just he was so banged up, and now we're going to see the real Justin
I love
Herbert
this
down
for
the
him,
stretch.
but I really love it for you, Greg.
Yes, I didn't need much.
I know. It's bringing you back to life after your travels. I think it's lovely.
It's
to see.
reanimating Greg.
All right, wrap us up, Jordan.
Yeah, quickly. I do think so. I don't want to undermine or undersell like how brutal this Aiden Hutchinson loss is. First of all, horrific to watch.
Oof.
Hate it for that young man, for the entire team, for the organization, for his long journey ahead. But actually, after they sort of emotionally recover from this situation, I still think this defense will ultimately keep ascending. And so the initial panic that everyone's feeling right now because of the severity of that situation, and of course, you're losing the top pass rusher in the league right now. But after that subsides, I think that then you'll start to feel some hope and optimism about this defense because every single week they're growing. I think they have the ability on the interior of their defensive line to sort of change around the identity. One of their guys, a couple of their players actually have some position flex where you could pop them out a little bit wider, and they're also getting good pressure. They are, 17 and 16 pressures between Onwuzurike and Aleem McNeil, and respectively, which is 11th and 14th among interior defensive line. And you can actually manufacture a little bit more pressure coming from that area. And as you see this secondary start to come to life, start to settle in, I think Brian Branch, in an age right now that we're in, that is becoming truly golden for safety play, where these safeties can do everything, they are letting Brian Branch do everything, and he is showing up. I really have faith in Aaron Glenn as a defensive coordinator, and I think he'll keep this group on track and ascending into what is about to be a very difficult backstretch for the entire NFC North.
It's a good call because he's very creative at making up for what they're missing. And
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that they're under-talented because they've poured a lot of resources, a lot of draft picks, a lot
And
of
they're
money into that
They've done
defense.
such a good job.
Right. And so they can scheme around it. I also think they might add someone, in the next couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
I could say. Well, they did. They picked some
Hassan Reddick?
pass rusher. Yeah, they picked.
No,
a
I think
pass
that would
rusher.
make a lot of sense.
I know.
Yeah, I do think so as well. And they also picked up. I'm gonna have to go back and look at it. They're scouring practice squads for depth for rotational outside linebackers as
But
well.
maybe like a bigger name, like a Reddick, they would make sense for. I did look for some potential trade candidates. We might do a whole show on this later in the month, but just for
We should
now,
just do it now.
Spicy.
just
Yeah, what
For
time
now.
are we at?
I think, is Jeffrey Simmons ever going to be available? Harold Landry, Jadeveon Clowney, Chase Young maybe from the Saints if they bottom out. The trick is you got to find a team that's bottoming out. Zadarius Smith, I think, would make a lot of sense from the Browns. So just someone. I think the Lions
Yeah.
will probably add someone
That makes sense.
at some point.